I have gotten a lot of questions lately about wood stocks versus synthetic stocks. So I thought I'd just go ahead and clear all of that up right now and just go ahead and explain why wood stocks are just better than synthetics. I have three very special Winchester Model 70 featherweights here that I've talked about all three of these rifles before, but they're special to me. And I'm going to explain why these three in particular are special and kind of tie this together here. And to start with, we have a 1960 Winchester featherweight chambered in 270 Winchester. And I talked extensively about this one in the video, Oops, I Bought Another Rifle. And I'll leave a link to that one below. But this particular rifle, this is the rifle Jack O'Connor used. His favorite rifle was his number 2 rifle. That's what he called it, it's number 2. It replaced his number 1. And it was a featherweight, Winchester Model 70 featherweight, chambered in 270, just like this one. Except for his was a 1959, this one's a 1960. And his had been gone over by an extremely talented gunsmith named Al Beeson. And Al Beeson put a custom stock on Jack O'Connor's 270. And this is the original factory stock on this one. And just the way I even came to own this rifle was pretty special. But I wanted to know, were the Pre-64s really as good as everybody says they are? I mean, I just always heard how great they are. And knowing this was the favorite rifle of Jack O'Connor, I just wanted one just to shoot it and find out, were they really that good? Because a lot of things from the past, I mean, we look back and talk about how great whatever was, when in truth, it really wasn't that great. It might have been great at the time. I mean, Model A Fords were great, but I wouldn't want one for a daily driver today. Well, after shooting this rifle and getting to know it, I can't begin to say how impressed I was with this rifle. The Pre-64s, it wasn't hype. They were that good. I mean, this is as good or better than anything today. Just the fit and feel of this rifle and how it shoots and handles and everything else is just outstanding. So, yeah, a very special rifle to me. And plus, it being almost identical to Jack O'Connor's, just lacking that really nice Al Beeson stock, that added a little something to it. And I see why he thought so much of that rifle. I get it. Next, we have a 1982 Winchester XTR Model 70 featherweight chambered in 257 Roberts. Okay, this one's a push feed. It's not a control feed. Winchester in 1964, or 1963 actually, that was the last year that they had control feeds, was in 1963. And then they changed their rifles and they made them cheaper. All right, not necessarily worse. The control feed rifles are good rifles, solid rifles. This is a solid rifle. And it's probably slightly stronger action on the push feed than the control feeds. It doesn't really matter, honestly, but still, I mean, if we're just going to look at pure numbers. Fine rifle. And I did a video on just, the post-64 rifle Winchesters. Were solid guns. The problem, or the biggest problem, is Winchester cut a lot of corners as far as the fit and finish of the rifles. And that was the biggest complaint on the 1964 year model rifles and the ones thereafter. The fit and finish just wasn't what it used to be. Which Winchester, things were changing, times were changing, and Winchester had to remain competitive with Remington and Savage and all the other manufacturers at the time who were making less expensive rifles. They had been making less expensive rifles than the Model 70. The Savage and Remingtons had been push feeds for some time. So Winchester had to modernize, and what modernize generally means is making something cheaper, not better. And yeah, a lot of people weren't happy. Well, in the late 70s, Winchester they'd lost a lot of market share, and they decided, okay, they're going to get serious and turn out some really nice rifles as far as fit and finish. So they came out with the XTRs. And what the XTR stood for was extra. It's just an extra, level of craftsmanship as far as fit and finish and so forth. And they came out with some gorgeous rifles and XTRs. And they reintroduced the featherweight. One of the changes that had been made in 1963, 64, Winchester got rid of the featherweight entirely. You couldn't buy one. They didn't make one anymore until 1981. Or it might have been 1980. I believe it was 81 though. So Winchester reintroduced the featherweight. It was an XTR, so a lot of attention to detail on the fit and finish. And these are some gorgeous rifles. And that's when they came out with the what's now very famous Schnabel forend here. And that was just a really nice touch to add it to it. And really fine bluing on these rifles. Gorgeous rifles. And this particular one, chambered in 257 Roberts, that's just a wonderful cartridge for a featherweight. Because a featherweight is a light rifle, you want a lighter recoiling cartridge. And the 257 Roberts is just, it's an outstanding cartridge in its own right. And then it being low recoil, you add it to something like this, and you've got a really sweet shooting rifle. And they're not, the 257 Roberts is no slouch, especially in a hand load. It's a 25 caliber bullet, and with the 100 grain bullets, that's what I'm shooting in this load, 3,000 feet a second is no problem at all. It's exceptional cartridge with a history to go along with it. I mean, just really great history behind the 257 Roberts. And Gun Blue 490, he's got probably the best videos on the 257 Roberts. Go check out some of his. It's worth watching. And I'll leave a link below to one in particular if he is, and I'll explain why in a minute. And finally, we have my Winchester Model 70 Featherweight Super Grade. And this one's chambered in 7x57 or 7mm Mauser, and I've talked about this gun a lot in the past. Special rifle to me. And this rifle here, it was a special edition. I mistakenly called it a commemorative in the past, but I have since learned there's a big difference between a special edition and a commemorative. A commemorative's made to be pretty and you hang it on the wall, and they generally just go down in value. And I hate to say that for any of you that have commemoratives, because so many buy a commemorative thinking it's going to go up in value, but they generally don't. Now, a special edition's just the opposite. They are special. That's a special edition. And they generally go up in value, or at least hold their value. And the special editions are made to be used, and they are special rifles. Well, this was a special edition commissioned by Cabela's. And Cabela's wanted to celebrate their 50th anniversary, which, looking back, is good they did, because they wouldn't be here to see a 60th. I know they still exist as a store, but it's in name only since Bass Pro Shop bought them out. But anyway, we're not getting into all that. All right, so this was a Cabela's special edition and celebrating their 50th anniversary. Well, they wanted Winchester to make different rifles and different configurations and chamberings that were very similar to the rifles that they sold in the early 1960s. I've even still got the hang tag that came with this rifle, because even the hang tag with the price on it was identical to the tags that were on the rifles in the early 1960s. And I just always thought that was neat. And this being chambered in 7x57 or 7mm Mauser, that was a popular chambering in the early 1960s. All your new 7mm cartridges, they hadn't came on the scene yet. The 7mm Remington mag was just about to be introduced, and then later you would have the 7mm Express or 280 Remington, and then eventually the 7mm 08. But in the early 1960s, 7mm Mauser was still popular. So that was fitting that this rifle was chambered in that. And some of the other chamberings they offered, they had an almost identical rifle to this, chambered in .257 Roberts. Again, still a popular chambering then. All right. This particular rifle, though, the stock on it's different than a standard featherweight, than the new featherweights with the snobble forend. All right, again, them wanting to pay homage to the rifles made in the 60s, this rifle is much closer to this 1960 featherweight. And you can see the resemblances here. Now the difference, the big difference, well, first of all, this is a super grade. And I've got to call Winchester out on this one. Okay, on the box that this came in, it says lightweight super grade. Okay, this is not a lightweight, and you know, some guy out in the shop shouldn't have to be calling Winchester out for not knowing their own rifles. This is not a lightweight. This is a featherweight super grade Winchester. Know the difference. And it's not much difference. I understand why they got it confused, but Winchester produced what they called lightweight Model 70s, and what they were was a featherweight barrel in action with a standard stock instead of the snobble forend. Okay, so that makes sense. And they produced those in the 80s and 90s. Nice rifles, by the way. But the difference was they had lightweight engraved on the barrel, not featherweight. This has featherweight engraved in the barrel, therefore that makes this a featherweight super grade. And in the early 1960s, you could buy a featherweight super grade from their custom shop. So this is, calling it a featherweight super grade is much more fitting to what it actually is and what was available in the early 60s. So yeah, I'm calling it a featherweight super grade. Okay, this rifle here also, though, the stock on this one's not quite the same as the 1960 here. This stock was modeled after the Al Beeson design that Jack O'Connor favored so much. So they incorporated that into the stock just to add a little something extra to it. Okay, now, me personally, you know, the history stuff there it's pretty interesting. But just like the Model 70, the pre-64 here, when I was talking about just how good of a rifle it actually is, not just hype. I understand why Jack O'Connor favored Al Beeson so much as far as his stocks and so forth, because this is an exceptionally well-feeling stock here. I mean, it feels so good. It's hard to describe it. And I mean, it's not, you know, something, you know, just head and shoulders above anything else, but you can feel a difference in this. It's just, I can't describe it. The forend here is more rounded. It's not as flat on the end. And the flat's great for shooting off a bag, but the rounded for me has always been more comfortable in the hand out in the field. And then the pistol grip here, it just has a feel to it. So yeah, I get why Jack O'Connor really loved his Al Beeson stocks. I get it. There's a reason for that, I assure you. Okay, so this is a special rifle, and this, hopefully you can see how all of this kind of ties together. And this rifle here, this particular 7mm Mauser with the pre-64 style action, Winchester made some extras of these. And if you see a 7mm Mauser featherweight with the pre-64 style action but a newer rifle, it was made in 2013 as part of this run. This one has the floor plate from Cabela's, and it's the super grade. And then while they had the tooling and everything set up, they also produced some rifles just like this that they didn't have the engraving on the floor plate, but it was still featherweight super grade. And I believe they produced 250 of these, 250 of the ones without the engraving. Most of those were sold at the 2013 SHOT Show. if not all of them. And they also produce some standard featherweights, chambered in 257, or excuse me, 7x57, with the snobble fore end. So they took this exact rifle, barrel action and all that, and then just put their standard featherweight stock on it in 2013. So all of the ones that you see, whether it's got the standard featherweight stock, or it's got the super grade stock, or it's got the engraved floor plate, they were all part of the same run of rifles, just different stocks. And same for the 257 Roberts. If you see a 257 Roberts with the pre-64 style action, so it's not push feed like this one, it's control feed. If you, no matter what stock, whether it's the super grade stock, whether it has the engraved floor plate or not, or standard stock like this one, they were all part of that same 2013 run. And it, I mentioned Gun Blue 490 has the best videos I've seen on 257 Roberts. Well, he's also got a really good video of shooting his 257 Roberts, and that's what his is. It was part of the 2013 run also, if I'm not mistaken. From what I could see, it was one of the ones produced then with the pre-64 style actions. And when I say this stock here just has a feel to it, I'm not exaggerating on that. Many of you have seen the 1903 A3 stock that I've been working on. This got put on hold with deer season and now fishing season. I'm just waiting on the weather to warm back up, and then we're going to get some linseed oil on this when the sanding's done. This stock's finished. Someone had converted this military stock into a sporter stock, and then I came back in and I really wanted to fine-tune what they had done. And they did an excellent job, but I wanted to add some extra touches. And I shaped this stock to match this one as close as I could. And it's really close. That's how much I think of this stock here. I mean, it really does feel that good. And I tried to make the pistol grip on this one match this. Even with the ebony fore end here, which gun manufacturers have not used actual ebony in the fore end tips in forever. They actually use plastic. And in fact, I think Winchester developed Bakelite just for that. I've got actual ebony on mine, but again, I shaped it to match this one as best as I could. That's just how much I love this stock. Now, unfortunately, here's the bad news on all of this, and this is where all of this is going to finally tie in with why wood stocks are just better than synthetics. My stock warped on this rifle. I mean, it warped bad. I did a video fixing my deer rifle accuracy problems, and I talked then about it was moving a little bit and it's causing a lot of stress here on the action. So I had to go in here and relieve some of the wood in here to take the pressure off. The bad thing about wood is it does move. It has stresses in it with the grain and so forth. This was a living thing at one time. This was a tree out in the forest somewhere at some point in its history. All of these rifles, their stocks were living things at one time. Well, occasionally, usually the curing process ensures that the wood's stable when they actually work it and turn it into a stock. But on this particular rifle, the wood still had stresses in it and it started moving a lot. It happens with wood from time to time. All right, so unfortunately, I had to replace this stock. Now, you can imagine the concern I had there as much as I think of this stock. And, you know, all that I just talked about was, you know, the connection to the whole history here. And this stock being modeled after Al Beeson design, and it being shaped, fashioned after the pre-64s like this one. The stock on this rifle is special, and they just, you just don't stumble across these every day. This isn't something I would just go buy a Boyd stock for. Not that I have anything against Boyd stocks. They're good stocks. I've shot at several rifles with them. I like them. And there's so many replacement stocks out there, Macmillan, HS Precision, on and on and on, Bell & Carson. There's some great options. They're not this. But fortunately, the Lord was smiling on me, and He blessed me. And this is actually the replacement here. I found the exact stock. This is the original one. And when I say the exact stock, it's the exact same stock. And I have no idea how somebody ended up with this one, but fortunately it found its way to me. So I've replaced it. We've got some work to do. I've got to do the bedding on this. I got to free float the barrel. And on the factory stock here that came with this rifle, and this one has a better finish, by the way. It's not exactly the same. That's the difference. This one was not completely finished. Okay, this summer when it warms up, I'm going to put at least one coat of linseed oil on this rifle, and then it should match this one exactly on the finish. And we're going to bed it, free float the barrel, and we're good. And I'm just can't say how tickled I am to have found this exact stock. I mean, that was a blessing. But this one warped something fierce. The hill of the rifle, I don't know if you can see from here, but it's about a ½ inch this way off the center of the axis. So that's putting a tremendous amount of pressure on the action in here. And had I just left the action in here and it kept bowing, eventually it would have blew out the side here. All right, and this is where it's bowing at. Now, most of the things with a wood stock we can fix. Cracks and splits and even it breaking. I mean, there's ways we can fix all of that with wood, which is one of the great things about wood is that we can fix so many of the issues with it. It's tough to fix this one. When they start bowing, you don't know where they're going to stop at. And generally, the more figure of wood, the more figure or grain that the wood has in it, the prettier it is, the more black streaks you see, usually the more potential there is for it to warp on you. Now, that doesn't mean a really gorgeous, highly figured stock's going to warp. It has more potential to. There's usually more stresses in there. And this one, I'm going to leave this stock off the rifle and just set this in the corner. And at some point, it's going to reach an equilibrium within the wood to where it's going to stop moving. I don't know what point that'll be. It might look like a potato chip, literally. Been around when it's done doing that. But it might have already reached that point now. I'll just set this in the corner for a couple of years and we'll see. But we've got a replacement. Okay, none of that happens with synthetics. Synthetics, they don't move on you. They're more stable. You're not going to have to worry about moisture. And a couple of things I want to address right now. Synthetic stocks just aren't inherently more accurate than wood, nor is the wood inherently more accurate than synthetics. If you've got a wood stock that the action's bedded and your barrel's free floated, and then you've got a synthetic stock that you've got some kind of pillar bedding or something and the barrel's free floated, both rifles are going to shoot outstandingly. Given enough moisture, it can affect the wood at some point. I've never seen moisture affect a rifle stock. I mean, I keep hearing that, and so many people, I think so many people today just in their mind, they worry about it. And I get that. I mean, if I'm going to go out in a swamp or something, I kind of worry about that too. But I've never seen it move. I've never seen it warp. And I know the accuracy's there with wood, same as synthetic. but the synthetic's not going to warp on you. Okay, so why on earth am I saying that wood's better than synthetic? Okay, you can imagine the heartburn I had over this stock here warping. You can imagine how much that upset me and how relieved I was to find this stock. If this had been a synthetic stock, I wouldn't have cared and it wouldn't have mattered. That's why wood's better, right there. The fact that I do care, the fact that, you know, I can look at these different rifles here, at the different configurations, stocks, history, so forth. The guy that designed this one, who designed your synthetic stock? Who cares who designed it? The fact that all of that matters on this is why wood is better. The fact that I do care. Now today, most of our rifles, they're modular. Okay, so you can take all the parts off and they're all interchangeable and swap things around, and there's a lot to be said for that as far as, you know, you can configure things how you want them, and that's definitely the direction all firearms are going in, especially long rifles, long guns, is modular. Folks, Legos are modular. Who cares about a Lego? That's what, toys are modular. And I'm not saying that the modular rifles of today are toys. I'm not saying that by any means. They're extremely effective. They're extremely efficient. They're very good at what they do. But they're not special. That's the thing. They're synthetic stock. If this had been a synthetic stock and it had cracked or broke or split or whatever, I'd have just went and got whatever, you know, stock and replaced this stock, and it wouldn't have mattered. I wouldn't have cared. Now maybe the synthetics just don't have the history, and that could be part of it. We've had wood for so long that the wood stocks have developed all of this history with Jack O'Connor and Al Beeson, and the development of the stock itself, you know, all that happened with wood. Maybe in 100 years, people are looking back on the synthetic stocks and, oh yeah, that's the synthetic stock that came on such and such rifle at such and such time, and this one little bitty cutout right here is what makes it different, so therefore that stock's special. You know, we could very well see that in however many years from now. But at the present, it don't matter, and synthetic stocks don't matter, and we don't care about them, and they're Legos. And when you break a Lego, you just replace it with another Lego. And I don't know what else to say about that. I mean, they work. All you that love your synthetic stocks, I get it. They are functional. But again, who designed your stock? Do you care? Is your stock special? Now, for any of you out there with the rifle that you dearly love and it has a synthetic stock, I seriously hope you don't think this is me putting down your rifle and your stock. That's not what I intended to do here at all. I'm thankful we have synthetic stocks now and that we have options and choices. I just see the wood stocks disappearing, and I hear so much negativity about them that I felt like this was worth mentioning on the wood stocks, that they are indeed special. And as we see fewer and fewer rifles with wood stocks, they're going to become even more special. That's the thing about something that's special, that works. Okay, again, the Model A's, I wouldn't want one as a daily driver. The wood still works, and just thanks to modern marketing, it's convinced a lot of us that it doesn't. I promise you it does. And it's going to keep working. Unfortunately, that one issue I had, and I had to mention that, I couldn't talk about how great wood is or how much better it is than synthetic and not mention, oh yeah, my stock on my favorite rifle warped. That would have just been wrong. That does happen with wood, and it can crack and it can split and things can happen. Again, generally we can fix it. Hopefully, I'm going to be on the water next week, but I just really wanted to clear the air on wood and synthetic again. I've got so many questions on that. So hopefully that helped some of you out there. And if nothing else, it's just at least interesting hearing about the various featherweights. God bless, and y'all have a wonderful day.